Welcome and hello, everyone. My name is Faith Johnson, and I'm a current graduate student in the Rutgers ECE department. And today we will be talking with Ramez Shahadi. He is an international leader, a technology strategist, a venture capitalist, and a community builder. For some background on him, he graduated from Rutgers in 1994, where he tried a couple different engineerings before he settled on a Mechie degree. Then he decided to get his Master's of Applied Science in Industrial Engineering from the University of Toronto in 1998. After that, he started off as an engineer with Stone & Webster, where he spent 23 plus years in strategy consulting with other leading firms like A.T. Kearney, Booz & Company, and then Booz Allen Hamilton. He was also a part of the first .com boom in San Francisco in the late 90s and co-built what became a $1 billion business. He is now the managing director of Facebook for the Middle East and North Africa region. He's a founding member of the Middle East Diversity and Inclusion Council, and he's on the Forbes Top 50 Regional Executives Heading International Companies list. So welcome, Ramez. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
So today's talk is going to be about COVID-19's effect on the digital world. So I guess for the first question, before we jump straight into that, can you tell us a little bit about your time at Rutgers?
Yes, absolutely. I think you opened it up well. I was sort of the accidental engineer in many ways. My dream growing up had been to study medicine, to be perfectly honest, and I, in last moments, sort of pivoted towards engineering, and I think in the end that was probably a great decision, though unintended at the time. But yeah, I couldn't decide which sort of engineering, so I tried mechanical, and then I thought, chemical engineering seems more interesting. Maybe I should try that out. And then I said, wow, it shouldn't have to be this hard. And so I thought, hey, civil, these guys seem very relaxed. Let me go try civil. And then I realized that, hey, at the time, mechanical engineering might in fact give me the most options. And so I focused in on that. And in fact, it wasn't just the degree that was a bit accidental. Even my whole Rutgers experience was a bit circumstantial and accidental. But again, it proved to be one of the best decisions. I, at the time, was headed to university in Canada, university called McGill. And being a Lebanese, I was getting my paperwork, my visa, to go to Canada from the Canadian Embassy in Kuwait. That summer, Saddam Hussein attacked Kuwait. The embassy shut down. I couldn't get a visa, and so I was stuck. Plan B, exactly. My uncle was a professor at Rutgers. We spoke to him, and he said, "Hey, maybe we can figure out a way for you to come here." And luckily, very thankfully, gratefully, it did work out. And so I came to Rutgers. And at Rutgers, I jumped in with both feet. I joined the crew team, got into the whole fraternity thing. I fell in love. and a year later, my father says, "Hey, time to go to McGill. The paperwork is here." And I said, "No way, man. I'm staying." I was very happy and met some absolutely delightful people from all around the world, including many parts of the United States, and certainly all up and down New Jersey. And it proved to be a wonderful experience.
It's always funny because from talking with several people, it doesn't matter what their road to Rutgers was because it's always a little bit different. But once they get here, it's pretty much always the same thing. Like, such a great place to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So for our second question, can you tell us a little bit more about your journey from Rutgers to Facebook?
Okay, I'll go rapid fire.
I know it's a long time.
It's a long time. I'll go rapid fire because I have been very fortunate and very blessed to have had a number of really kind of amazing experiences. some of which kind of unfolded and some of which I had to kind of grab. And so I studied engineering, though as an engineer, I always felt like, hey, I'm very thirsty for a liberal arts education. And so I took every opportunity to study history or art history or philosophy. It gave me energy. It used the other part of my brain. But I thought, having studied engineering, I should at least work as an engineer. Right. And so I ended up going to work for a Boston-based firm called Stone & Webster. But of course, I couldn't work with them in the United States because I wasn't a US citizen. And they said, hey, you speak Arabic. You're familiar with the Middle East. We have a major program in Saudi Arabia with Saudi Aramco, upgrading the largest oil refinery of its kind at the time, the Ras Tanura refinery. Mm-hmm. I thought, okay, interesting. Yeah, I can do that. My father happened to work for Aramco. And so I thought this is a great way to be near my parents. Mm-hmm. And so off I went and worked on that as a mechanical engineer, sizing steam traps and piping flows, and pretty soon realized that, hey, this is not my calling in life. I need more business exposure. And what should one engineer do to gain more business exposure? Aha! He should study industrial engineering. And so I had gotten a fellowship at the University of Toronto to start a PhD in industrial engineering. And so off I went over there. And while I was in that program, I caught the eye of a think tank at the university called the Center for Management of Technology and Entrepreneurship. They invited me to join them to use engineering methods to solve business problems, primarily in the financial services. Mm-hmm. And so I started working on predictive models using OR techniques, so non-parametric linear programming techniques, data envelopment analysis and the like, which are essentially consumption models, right? Input, output maximization, input minimization. Mm-hmm. To predict mutual fund performance, or what a great experiment that was. And then I decided, hey, PhD is a long time. Let me, right. Faith,
I do.
And a number of friends started to apply and go into strategy consulting. And so I thought, why not try the same? And I gave it a shot and was recruited into a company called A.T. Kearney. Mm-hmm. And so I put my PhD to the side, left with a master's degree, and went to A.T. Kearney. And I entered the world of strategy consulting and got to work with them all around the world, many different places. And then a bunch of people started to leave A.T. Kearney and go west to California because there was a dot-com bubble that was occurring. And for those of you that may recall the head of the Treasury, Alan Greenspan, saying it was the days of irrational exuberance. Anything that moved had big bucks thrown at it, very much the way things are happening today. And so myself and a bunch of guys and gals from A.T. Kearney got a hefty check to go out and build a B2B e-sourcing business. And I kind of took on the whole technology dossier. Had an engineering team in Bangalore in India, a team in San Francisco, in Walnut Creek, just on the other side of the bridge, and we built a business. And in the span of a year and a half, it became $1 billion business. Cool. And we were invited to IPO the business. We filed the S1 to take it public, and then the bubble burst. So Morgan Stanley at the time said, hey, it's not time to IPO. Why don't you try to sell it? We couldn't sell for $1 billion, 500, 100, 50, 20. So we kept it running. And it still operates and functions today. Cool. But while I was there, in fact, I had done a presentation on the future of electronic services in Mountain View, just south of San Francisco. And some partners at another consulting firm called Boozow & Hamilton said, hey, would you consider business in the Middle East? I thought, well, not really thinking about it. Been there, done it. But my girlfriend at the time says to me, hey, I'm thinking of going back to the Middle East. She had finished dental school at Penn and had done her dental residency at UCSF. Said, I want to go open a dental business in the Middle East. And I thought, something is happening. And so I thought, you know what? The stars are aligned. Let me give it a shot. If I go back and I don't like it, I can always come back. So I moved to the Middle East, joined Booz Allen Hamilton. There were 30 of us at the time. In that first year, we got engaged. Second year, we got married. Third year, we got our first kid. And then a second kid and a third kid and a fourth kid. And now, 20 years later, I'm still in the Middle East. We grew the Booz Allen Hamilton business from 30 people to 500 people. We split off the strategy portion of that consulting business and globally created Booz & Company. I became the head of the digital strategy business in the Middle East. And then I created a new function called Booz Digital, and I co-led that globally across all geographies. And then we sold Booz & Company. And at that time, I decided to return to Booz Allen Hamilton, and I became the senior partner responsible for driving the international expansion of the firm. And then one day, Facebook comes along and says, hey, look, Ramesh, we realize you're not a marketing guy. You're not an advertising guy. You're not a sales guy, but you understand the boardroom. You understand the C-suite. You understand the heads of state. You understand the cabinets. Can you help us to evolve our game? How do we become relevant, not only to the chief marketing officer of an organization, how do we become relevant to all these other folks that you've been dealing with? And how do we evolve our revenue model from being only about marketing spend to being part of the always on business of an institution? I thought, interesting question. You've got my attention. And so I jumped in with both feet and have been at Facebook now coming up on 3 years. Cool. As you said, the managing director and evolving the business and shaping the business for this part of the world with many colleagues all around the world, and really moving the needle on what it means to be in the digital economy in the Middle East and North Africa. It's a fascinating region. If you looked at the collective GDP of Middle East, North Africa, it's greater than that of India. Yeah. If you look at the population, 470 million people, and more than half of them, significantly more than half of them, are connected. Most of them are holding mobile devices that have access to the internet. But the percentage of businesses that are plugged into the digital economy, though people are online, though people are on Facebook or Instagram or use WhatsApp or Messenger, the percentage of businesses that are connected in the digital economy, Faith, are just a tiny fraction, less than 0.5%. Okay, there are tens of millions, less than 0.5%. And that gets a heck of a lot of my attention. To be an agent of change, to evolve the socioeconomic conditions of this region by enabling the digital economy of this part of the world. So long answer, I warned you.
So at the end there, you're talking about the number of businesses being connected being like a very small percentage, but have you seen that change since COVID-19 has hit?
Fantastic question. What COVID-19 has done, I mean, it's touched every aspect of our life as we know it. Our social interactions, our entertainment, our business, our learning. Every aspect has been impacted, more often than not negatively, but now increasingly more positively. And when you look at the state of small and medium, even micro businesses all around the world, we did an interesting study entitled the global state of small and medium businesses. We did it with the World Bank and the OECD. Interesting report. If you get the chance, I encourage people to look it up and read the series of reports that have been done. We analyzed the number of businesses that were shuttered, what the key issue facing businesses was, and the Middle East featured quite significantly in that. We looked at 30,000 businesses across 50 nations, and the Middle East featured quite heavily in that. But the impact to them has been quite significant. The flow of cash, most businesses have relied on physical engagement. You go to your supermarket, you go to your grocery store, you go to your laundromat. It requires physical engagement. And what has happened is that these businesses, in the absence of physical engagement, have found that their revenue streams and their consumer engagement has come to a standstill. And so we've put a lot of emphasis in helping small and medium businesses get online. We launched in the middle of COVID something called Facebook Shops that helped a business in whatever brick and mortar condition it might be, whether you're a singular carpenter or you run some sort of boutique food restaurant, or you provide some service. It gave them a digital storefront. It automated and digitized their menu of services or menu of products. It offered a payment gateway, a warehousing solution, a logistics solution, and guidance on how to evolve their businesses from pure survival mode to somehow starting to thrive by meeting communities, engaging with consumers beyond the boundary of physical engagement that they had prior to COVID. And that's been one of our biggest investments in small and medium businesses. Overall, we've also offered grants and funding and ad credit. And in Lebanon, in particular, in this part of the world, some of you might realize that Lebanon suffered from what is considered the largest explosion on the planet after the nuclear explosions. And it was catastrophic for the country. We, beyond humanitarian aid, we have stood up a small and medium business hub in Lebanon specifically to aid many businesses to stand up on their feet again and to kind of recover amidst all of the complexities that exist in that particular country at this time.
So that was kind of how you introduced Facebook Shops to help the small businesses, but have you seen that actually increase personal engagement?
Of course, personal engagement. I mean, in a world where brick and mortar, small and medium businesses needed to digitize and engage, in the absence of physical mobility, the consumer also needed to engage. So people like you, like me, end up spending so much more time connected online as we are now, because we didn't have the ability to go and be together physically. Yeah? While there was a problem for small and medium businesses, the challenge for the consumer is that if you are not financially included, if you don't have a bank account or a credit card, how do you plug in and engage digitally? Right. How do you buy? Yeah. How do you procure what you need? How do you get the basics? And so it created a chasm. It exacerbated financial exclusion, right? We had means of getting by. Now that everything's online, how do we get by? And so Facebook as an organization is putting a lot of emphasis on figuring out peer-to-peer payments. There's been a lot of announcements around Novi, previously known as Calibra, the digital wallet. Announcements around Diem, previously known as Libra, the cryptocurrency that we are participating in amongst many other players. Big remittance corridors like you find in the Middle East suggest that the Middle East is a priority for us in that regard. And we've been working with a number of more established players in the communities to help introduce vouchering systems to enable people to convert cash into digital value so that they can engage on these platforms. A voucher, let's say, like your Apple iTunes card that you buy at the Apple store, right? You've paid someone cash, you've taken a card that has inherent value on it, and so that you can use it to buy and do what you need to do. So it's accelerated. There's been these memes that have shown pictures of corporations that say, what led you to your digitization? Was it the board or your CEO or COVID-19? And in fact, COVID-19 has dramatically changed, as we said at the outset, all aspects of both commercial and social engagement.
I mean, I guess it really is true that necessity is the mother of invention.
It really is.
Definitely.
It really, really is.
So that was how COVID-19 affected at least the Middle East in terms of like the small businesses. But what about on a macro level or for the corporate world and the public sector?
Yeah, fascinating stuff. So what ends up happening and what is happening now is a realization that that in our interest to get what we need online, the facilities of tools, the prevalence of tools is leading us to change our behaviors. Messaging platforms like Messenger, like WhatsApp, have brought about this notion of what we now call conversational commerce. You and I can message each other. You have something to sell. I have something I want to buy. How can you answer my questions? Right. and close the procurement gap through messaging? And what aspects of this dialogue need to be enabled to complete it, right? So think payments, think logistics. And so we've been investing quite heavily with the big organizations in particular, based on what we've seen with smaller organizations around conversational commerce, that, hey, actually, I can message with my brand, the brand that I'm interested in, or the advertiser that I'm interested in. I can engage in a one-to-one relationship, or what feels like a one-to-one relationship, in order to get what I need, as opposed to going onto a site and looking for what I want, and then, clicking it, so then it goes into a shopping cart, and then I select my credit card. That whole process is now far more streamlined, or getting more streamlined and getting more optimized. And this part of the world has particularly compelling geographies in terms of the propensity for success in terms of this conversational commerce paradigm, meaning businesses that are already engaged with consumers through messaging, as an alternative to, I've gone to your Facebook shop, or I've gone to your website, or I've gone to the marketplace. I'm already engaged in a one-to-one relationship. And so this part of the world is really doubling down. In fact, the whole planet is doubling down on conversational commerce.
I guess as someone who lives in the United States, I don't have a lot of exposure to like the Middle East specifically. So what would you say some unique problems are that exist like in the Middle East that would stop people from being able to be digitally engaged?
Well, I suppose the challenges that we have here are not necessarily unique to here. They're, universal. And some of them, you might also face in parts of the United States. It's been very clear, since so much of your news is always in the public domain. We can't seem to shut it off. We're always hearing about US news. But I suppose that, some of the challenges in terms of enabling the digital economy is financial inclusion. One of the things that I've talked about, how many people do have bank accounts and have the ability to engage commercially online and to buy online. We have a lot of geographies. You have the benefit of having an open market across your 50 states. In this part of the world, each country has its borders. And so getting things across borders isn't always as easy or seamless or timely as we'd like. Customs and customs authorities in such close proximity is a friction. It's an inefficiency. Yeah. Some of the laws around bankruptcy and the ability for a startup to rebound, or how financial services invest in or loan to small and medium businesses, is sometimes fixated on, well, how many assets do you have and what can we collateralize? But if you're an online business, what asset do you have besides a laptop and maybe, a bike?
Right.
Right? And so I think the evolution of some of the laws is varied. In some places it's hyper progressive, in other areas it still has a ways to go. What universally binds the region perhaps is a classical form of Arabic. Yeah. But most people don't necessarily operate in classical form of Arabic. In the United States, you have English and maybe Spanish in some areas. But in the Middle East, while we have Arabic as a dominant language, you also have French-speaking North Africa. You have a more Anglophile orientation in the Gulf states, and then you have massive dialect differences that are quite dramatic, actually, if you think about them. But so these are some of the challenges that we have in different religions, different time zones, different cultures. But these challenges are also significant opportunities. It provides more richness, more color, a wider variety of taste, a greater sense of need. You have geographies that are, dominated by hydrocarbon and oil revenue, others that are all about trade, others that are all about tourism. And so the Middle East is not one contiguous place. You can't paint it with one thick brush. It's a fabric, and this fabric is woven together, and it in many ways is also the source of our strength.
So with all of this talk of differences, and with COVID-19, I know for me personally, it's been a very isolating time, but what do you think we can do to stay more connected, both to each other, but also, I guess, to the businesses that we know and love as well?
Yeah. Well, I think more and more businesses are coming online. They are refining their purpose, their mission, their intention in the business world and towards their consumers. They're evolving from a one-to-many to much more of a one-to-one, whether they're using people to do these things or they're using bots to do these things. So businesses are evolving. I think we as a society are learning to leverage these platforms to be together apart. Right now it happens to be a period of Ramadan, which is the month of introspection and fasting and sacrifice in the Middle East. We just finished Easter and Passover a couple of weeks ago, right? Which were also a period of introspection and sacrifice, and then concluded with a celebration. And so, whether it's Easter or Passover or Ramadan, communities, or Nowruz, the Persian New Year, slightly before that, all of these events are finding a way online and allowing people to celebrate and to observe the rituals of these special moments online and together. These video conferencing facilities allow us to kind of feel like we're in a living room together. I feel like you're sitting a meter away from me.
3 feet from me.
We're having, we're having a chat. And so we're learning to celebrate, we're learning to share, we're learning to express ourselves online. We're learning to learn. If I was limited to my classroom before and maybe a few kind of Google searches on whatever topic, well, now I'm actually attending all kinds of courses all around the planet on a myriad of different topics on demand. And in those societies where internet access has been sparse and insufficient, big tech firms, Facebook is one of them, is investing heavily. You may have heard about Africa 2, the largest subsea cable project out there that goes all around the African continent, connecting millions and millions and millions more people. And so people are gaining access, people are connecting, people are learning, they're becoming more financially included. So, and again, COVID has accelerated much of this. But as we've been saying repeatedly, it's all aspect of life is changing. At the same time, in many ways, we're becoming more sedentary.
Right.
We're becoming more lonely, even though we're connecting. I think we're becoming more anxious, around the permutations of the virus and what should we do, and variants and the like, vaccinations. So, it's a lot of positivity, a lot of challenge, and they're sort of in yin and yang. They're intertwined.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for answering a lot of my questions. I feel like I've gotten to hog you for this long. So I guess now we'll open it up to audience questions. So I guess if you have questions, put it in the chat and then I will ask them. So the first question is, how do you see COVID-19 affecting the job market?
Great question. Great question. Look, we've seen job markets kind of, they pulse, they're sinusoidal. They go up and they go down depending on industrial revolutions, war, health. There are many triggers to fluctuation. I think what COVID has shown us, as we said several times, is that those industries that have been highly dependent on physical mobility have had an existential threat and an existential driver to reinvent themselves, to pivot. How does an airline become a global e-commerce player?
Right.
Or how does it use its catering service to play in the ghost kitchen space? Or how does a hotel bring the hotel experience to your home as opposed to bringing you to the hotel? Right? So different industries have malls, have also had their own set of challenges. What do they do? So certain industries compress, regress, tighten, pivot to find new avenues of growth, while other industries explode. Think about what's happening now to last mile delivery, express delivery, explosive demand. Think about what's happening to gaming. Think about what's happening to fintech and creative tech, video consumption, explosive growth through the roof. So there are industries that are growing, being born, others that are withering, tightening, reinventing. So the job market, I would say, is in direct response to this. There are many new jobs we didn't think about and many existing jobs that are waning. But in the digital world, I think it's all about growth, all about growth. And all of you guys, whether you're, alum or active students, have a fantastic opportunity to play in this domain. I think there's plenty of growth to explore and be a part of on the road ahead.
So you mentioned fintech, which I think goes well into this next question, which is, will Bitcoin and similar currencies become as important as stocks and bonds in stock markets around the world?
I think the promise of crypto is nascent, right? Mm-hmm. We're in the early days of this. We've seen hyperbolic behaviors, particularly around some of them, that are hard to understand. It doesn't seem logical. Why is it that value? What is it based on? And I think the jury is out on some of these things. Maybe it becomes a highly substantial and a part of everyday life, and maybe not. Maybe it doesn't. So I'm not in a position to kind of peer into a crystal ball on that. But I can tell you that Facebook is going into some of these things. I mean, as you've known, we're participating in the advent of a cryptocurrency called Diem, formerly known as Libra. It has its own mandate. It has its own governance. We are a player amongst many in that space, but not all cryptocurrencies are created equally, right? Some have backing and asset value, some do not. And though blockchain maybe brings most of them together as a medium for exchanging value, it requires each and every person, I think, to come to conclusion on the value of those technologies and those mediums in their own life. But I think cryptocurrency is here to stay. Personally, I think it'll become increasingly a part of our life on the road ahead.
Agreed. So the next question is, how do you see artificial intelligence affecting the way we conduct business in the immediate future?
Fantastic. Good one. I think it's at the root and at the heart. Actually, you know what? You should answer that question, Faith. That's part of what you're...
So for background, I'm in computer engineering. I'm focusing more on computer vision than like pure AI per se. But honestly, I feel like it's already in everything. You just don't know about it.
Yes. Look, artificial intelligence is very much at the heart of the fourth industrial revolution, right? That if understanding human behavior is at the foundation of and emulating it and enabling it is at the heart of the fourth industrial revolution, that this is all about AI. Right. So how can I better understand Faith's preferences, her reactions, her desires, her needs, her habits, so that I can avail services, products, tools, opportunities, information at the right time, in the right way, and in the right volume, so that it feels like and is truly a part of your life and an extension of you. I think that's the prize.
More efficiently, yeah.
Absolutely, that's the prize of tech. Do I need to be in front of a computer or staring at my phone, or can it be a part of my everyday? Why can't through M2M engagement, the products in my home already anticipate what I need? Why do I have to go and say, all right, go click to buy something from someone somewhere? There's enough known about certain patterns, if you opt to make them known, that somehow these aspects can be made easier. Look, this notion of artificial intelligence is not new. You guys may have heard of Isaac Asimov, Fantastic Voyage, 1930s, maybe 40s. I don't remember when that was written, right? He warned the world around what happens if we don't act responsibly around artificial intelligence and data and technology development. And so, it's super exciting, but I think organizations have to act super responsibly, and governments need to rise to the occasion to oversee and regulate, so that that we preserve our humanity and we preserve our identity in the communities in which we thrive.
So speaking of regulations, someone says, since social media, including Facebook, has become a contentious political topic with Senate hearings and the FCC, can you summarize Facebook's view on Section 230 and net neutrality?
I think that's a super important question. I think such topics and such questions deserve the right platform. I think we're talking around here about my journey and my role in Facebook and the experience of Rutgers. Fantastic question. I think the answer to that, most appropriately, is available to you online. If we can have these questions maybe even shared afterwards, would be more than happy to find a way to help bring clarity around that.
So switching gears, brick and mortar has an advantage for touch and feel goods. So how does a virtual store compete on that plane?
Look, it's a great question.
Also a computer vision question.
Yes, well, Faith, go for it.
I just mean like there's some work in the computer vision field around how do you represent texture in an image so that like someone can actually understand like what it would feel like. It is not anywhere close to where it needs to be, you know, like a commercial
Absolutely.
product, but they're working on
Absolutely.
this.
Absolutely. And they are working on it. And you know, a lot of the innovation that's happening with differently abled people is leading us to think about the senses, you know, in an entirely new way. You know, how do you convey something that you and I are seeing to someone who cannot see? And how do we convey what we are hearing to someone who cannot hear? You know, and so the innovation and the technology that's going into this, which we're also participating in, is really at the forefront of a lot of this. We're making plenty of investments into AR and VR. How do you create an immersive experience? How do you look around something? How can you engage with a product through, you know, a two-dimensional mode, but to have a three-dimensional experience? So I think it's early days, but you know, the aspirations are absolutely tremendous, and the applications of it are truly tremendous. I mean, when you start to think about texture and pressure and tactile nature of things, imagine what innovation and technology can do in this space when it comes to medicine, when it comes to engineering, and when you build stuff, create stuff, shape stuff. It's fascinating. I want to go back to school.
So I guess since we're back to engineering, this gives me a good segue to my next question, which is how did what you learned with your mechanical engineering degree or even your industrial engineering degree transfer to what you're doing at Facebook? Because it seems like to someone's like first look to be two completely disparate jobs.
It's not. It's
right?
not. It's not. It's not. I'll tell you, the binding agent in all of this, I say this to my kids who are standing there looking at me now, is the scientific method. It's the scientific method in everything, whether you're an engineer or a business person or a medical professional or a lawyer or whatever it might be, any walk of life, your ability to observe, collect, think, assert, test, refine, and reassert, and then repeat. That ability, that diagnostic, is vitally important, and vitally important in a world that has a decreasing attention span. We react. In many ways, you know, technology is promoting these reactions. You know, flip, screen, picture, screen, select. But your ability as engineers, as scientists, as critical thinkers, to do this sequence, to apply the scientific method, is, I think, just vitally important. Observe, collect, think, assert, test, refine, assert, repeat, will allow you to build great product, will allow you to shape outstanding business cases and results, and will allow you to be compelling and coherent. And I think these are incredibly important attributes in a world that is increasingly driving us to react and not do some of these things consistently.
So for the next question, going back to AI just briefly, someone is saying that delegation of human cognitive functions to AI will potentially make humans obsolete. How will the business world handle this phenomena, and will the humans even be needed in decision making? Although I guess based on your previous answer, I can kind of guess what you're going to say.
What do you think?
Well, based on your last answer, how you were saying like the skills that we have of like the scientific method and being able to assert and reassert and like think critically about things, like will we ever really be able to make an AI that can do this? or at least as effectively as a human can, or as elastically as a human can, because we can draw so many different like different pieces of information from a lot of different areas and bring them together into a space that seems completely unrelated and be able to use that to draw conclusions.
That's a much better answer than what I would have given. I think anything that we can fully codify, anything that is already spelled out infinitesimally, probably doesn't deserve too much more of our attention or like thinking process, because it's fully codified. And if a machine can process that, why not?
Right.
Let's use our capacity where there's more white space and dots to be connected within limits, right? Like I'm not saying, outsource everything to a machine, but if it's already codified, because to your point, there is an elasticity, there is some exception that perhaps need consideration. But I don't think humans become obsolete. I think humans turn their attention to things that are more value adding. That's been the theme of every industrial revolution to date, that we change our posture, we engage differently. I don't need to hammer the nail. I get a tool that hammers the nail, and so I can use my energy to do something else.
Right. So then for the next question, how does Facebook's regional goals, like the undersea cable in Africa or other ventures in the Middle East, coincide with geopolitical tensions between the US and other countries? So do you think that that's informed by the tensions? So Facebook's trying to say, see, I know we're from America, but we're still doing all of this good in other places? Or do you think it's completely unrelated?
Well, I mean, it's not part of our design. So it's not that we're not an extension of a political agenda. We're a private business. We're a publicly traded business. We are, we serve now. I think the latest numbers show that we are engaged with over 3 billion people on our platforms. We operate out of many, many countries around the world. We employed many tens of thousands of people. We're here to connect communities, help commercial organizations to thrive, and bring communities together and allow people to express themselves. The geopolitical agenda that may change at any point in time is something that nations are at liberty to figure out. We're here to help businesses and help communities connect, thrive, learn, and grow.
So complete 180 with the next question.
Yeah.
What courses do you wish you had taken before graduation? Or do you think that you would go back and take now if you could? Or what courses do you wish your new hires had taken?
I love these questions. Look, there's something that I have told many of my team members over the years. Singularity of focus is certainly an important and valuable thing in becoming an expert in something. But invention and innovation and growth is often a function of the connection that we make between people and each other. And if all we're about is a singular focus, then we only have one facet that we hope to find resonance with somebody else. But the more facets you can create in your life, the more likely that a facet will connect with someone else. Yeah. And so I have often encouraged my team members to be Renaissance women and men in their own life and to bring it authentically into the workplace. Be well read, listen to music, engage in the culture of food, go to the theater, read, listen, try, explore, leave no stone unturned, become as rich and as well-rounded and as colorful as you can be. Take nothing to be mundane. Find curiosity in all things, and especially be curious about people. Be curious about people. everyone has many things beautiful about themselves. And your ability to kind of invest in the person across from you and to discover who they are and what might resonate with your facet, I think is the greatest insight I can offer anyone. That while you're going to learn whatever you're going to learn, but invest in being well-rounded, in being diverse, and invest in patience and in understanding and in curiosity.
Well, that was a great answer. It seems to be the end of the participant questions. So I guess I will end with one of my own.
Yes.
Can you share one of the lessons that you think is most impactful to you that you've learned over this past year?
Well, I think what I shared is certainly one of them. If I were to pick another, is to ask yourself, I think, or to look yourself honestly in the mirror, and to really come to terms with what you consider success to be, and be precise and intentional about it. Success doesn't mean winning all the time. Success doesn't mean financial gain. Success doesn't mean admiration, for me. And so I think being honest with oneself and determining what you want to solve for in life and how you determine and measure success is an extremely valuable exercise. I was intentional about what my 20s were going to be. I was intentional about what my 30s were going to be. I'm intentional now around my 40s and starting to think about what my 50s will be. But look yourself in the mirror and be honest around what motivates you and what drives you. And I think in that consideration, realize that failure is essential for success. You must fall down. You have to know the pain of something to appreciate the joy of something. You have to, see and suffer I suppose the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune in order to know and to value achievement on the other side of it. We get so caught up in a world that says, gain, grow, connect, succeed, achieve. And you end up losing yourself in this. Failure gives you humility. It gives you tenacity. It gives you endurance. It gives you character. Ultimately, it can give you hope. And so that's the other, I suppose, lesson is that look yourself in the mirror, figure out what you're solving for, and invite failure into your life.
Great. And then there was a false alarm. There is one more question. What is something you like to learn from those you interview for a job?
That's a good one. I like to know. I like to know what their passion is, or what they're reading, what motivates them beyond. These are the three things you should know about me in the interview. I'm personally, I'm very curious about people. I'm looking for facets of connectivity. And so I really am very curious about what they read or what gives them joy or what their hobby is or what their passion is. Because I think it reveals a lot about who they are and who they will be.
Great. Okay, so I think that is actually the end of the questions. So I'd just like to thank you again for being here with us today.
Hey, this was super fun, Faith. I really appreciate it. These are wonderful questions from you, from the participants. And maybe I can leave a final thought. Rutgers is not about a degree. I think, Rutgers is about an experience. It's a mindset. Be active in shaping your mind. Be active in choosing who you will be in life. Take every opportunity to meet people, to challenge yourself, to grow. The world is a white page. Write it as you may. What you're equipped with at Rutgers will serve you for the rest of your life. And I wish you, one and all, the greatest of success as you define success, and to embrace it fully on the road ahead. Thank you so much.
Thanks.